What's up, everybody? We are back with another exciting episode of Eagles on the Air, the podcast coming to you straight from the Salesian High School broadcast studio. We have a tremendous guest for you today. Our guest is Salesian High School's assistant principal for academics and the parent of a 2022 graduate, Mrs. Cynthia Chambers. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am pumped to have you on here. I have a whole list of stuff we can talk about. I'm hoping we have time. We will have time to get to all of it. But as usual, if you've been watching the podcast, following along, you know that I ask all my guests the same question as soon as they sit in that chair. Start us off, if you don't mind, telling us your Salesian story.
Sure. So the first time I actually was ever to Salesian's campus was for Henry, my son's 7th grade open house. We did as, you direct parents to go more than once, to start going early. So we came in his 7th grade. And by then I had run open houses for other schools for years. So I approached kind of, cynical, like I know how this is done. I know what you highlight and what you don't highlight, what you don't want mentioned, how you train students. So I was a tough customer, but I was impressed right away with a couple of things. One is that everyone we encountered, whether they were checking us in or they were a Salesian or they were a teacher or they were a tour guide, was very clear that Salesian is a home, a school, a parish, and a playground. And I know that the only ways that you can get a large group of people to all say the same thing is either you really, really drill them and coach them, but then it sounds very robotic and rehearsed and not natural. Or, which I think was the case here, is it's just the truth. So everybody says the same thing because it's the truth. So that engaged me, that made me want to learn more. I also appreciated that it was clear that Salesian, like Don Bosco, was here for the boys. I went to some other schools, and I heard a lot about our young men, our men. My son was 13. He wasn't a man yet. I was in no rush for him to become one, and what I was looking for was a school that would accompany him as he moved in that direction. And then finally, Steve, I was very impressed with how you related to your tour guides and the other kids. I have been part of open houses that were very rigid and lots of training, and there's, tour A and tour B, and, it was much more informal, but more supportive in a way. You might be like, hey, Peter, you're from St. Benedict's, right? Take this nice family around. And you were always right, and you always knew their name. And then one last bit that always stuck with us and my son and I about that tour is the student who led us had a noticeable challenge with his speech. And that didn't prevent you from choosing him. It didn't prevent him from leading the tour. And finally, towards the end of the tour, in what I now know is the chem lab, a parent asked him about it, asked him if he'd ever been teased for it. And he paused, and a number of us thought, oh, maybe you shouldn't have said that, Mom. But he paused and said, not at Salesian. I didn't really need to look further then, so.
That's great to hear. I remember those years when you were looking for a school for Henry, and it ultimately became a great freshman class, in particular, a great freshman class from St. Benedict's. I believe he came with maybe 9 or 10 of his friends.
Yeah.
It was a great group. And you bring a very unique experience and a unique background to Salesian High School because you have experiences working at the administrative level at a co-ed school, an all-girls school, and for several years at Salesian, obviously an all-boys school. Can you talk on the benefits, maybe the similarities, differences of each of the three?
Yeah, so I've taught for a long time at a coeducational Catholic high school, and I had only ever been to coeducational schools myself. I went to a public high school, so it was just normal to me. And I used to say, and I believed it then, that the real world is coeducational. Most colleges are coeducational. The sooner the kids get used to it, the better. But then becoming the parent of girls and a boy, it became really clear to me that girls and boys are different, not better or worse, just different. And as society changes, and in my opinion, respects the difference and the unique gifts of boys and girls, it respects those things less. It's all the more important that they have an opportunity to develop differently. Girls and boys are different. They're not better or worse, they're just different. They're also individuals as well, but there's a lot of studies to support that, especially during adolescence, a single sex environment has advantages. And there really isn't a lot to suggest that it has disadvantages. So, an advantage, for example, boys in an all boys environment are much more likely to take higher level English classes, to participate in student government. If girls are around too, boys tend to step back and let girls run things, organize things, and things like that, especially social events and student government. But in an all boys environment, they're more likely to take those things on. You don't need to worry about trying to limit their competitive nature. Instead, you just try and channel it appropriately. Boys will compete about everything, and that's okay. Whereas girls, in an all girls environment, they're much more likely to take higher level math classes, to take things like physics, to be student president, or at least attempt it. And so, what students in both environments, all girls and all boys, report is that it allows them to fully be themselves and to develop, on their own. And while they will go on to coeducational colleges and trade schools and workplaces, that this foundational time is very important for them. So.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's so insightful too, because I get asked that question as the admissions director all the time. How do you think my son will, react to going to school with all boys? And it's great to hear firsthand experience from the parent of three high school graduates, or two high school graduates, and a very
One soon to be.
soon to be high school graduate. But let's circle back to the Salesian story. You brought Henry here as a freshman, and in that time applied for and got the job and became our assistant principal for academics. So tell us a little bit about maybe your entry into that position and what you do each day. You're such an impactful person here, so well known, and the kids are constantly in your office answering a million questions a day. So just, if you don't mind, hit on that for a quick second.
Yeah, so another part of the story of my Salesian story is that once Henry was a student here, and I started to read the monthly parent newsletter, there was always a quote from St. John Bosco or St. Francis de Sales or something like that. And what I really recognized was that a lot of what Salesian educators subscribe to, I already believed and was in many ways practicing. So, for example, there was my favorite quote of St. John Bosco. It is not enough to love the children, they must feel that they're loved. And I had it in my office at another school. And there was a moment during COVID, which, gosh, it was difficult to be an educator during COVID. But a whole bunch of things happened, some of them specific to that school, some of them just the world in general, that I just had a moment that I am no longer aligned with this school's mission. And that's nobody's fault, right? Like we continue to grow. And so where should I be? What should I do next? And I happened to look up and see that quote. And I thought, gosh, I wonder if there is a spot for me at Salesian, because I already believe in the mission. I already am invested in their success. So let's see. And just to kind of check and make sure that wasn't outrageous, that I wasn't, suffering from an inflated sense of self, I texted George Janvier, may he rest in peace. And yeah, he said absolutely. And, in George fashion, yo, when he called me up. But yeah, it just worked out.
I remember it well, and we're lucky to have you here. We really are. I know I tell you that all the time. Even when we're in each other's offices. But you said something right now that was like not mind-blowing, but it was like eye-opening. And I get the question all the time. Sometimes it's from kids or now men that I taught years ago. They say, the question used to be, you're still there? And now it's turned to, you're still there? Like, that's how I know I'm here a long time. But to answer that question so easily, I tell the kids what you just said. when you believe in where you are and you align with it so well, it really doesn't become work anymore. It's like a mission, and it makes our job so much easier. And so I know we have a lot in common being parents, watching our own kids grow, learn. My kid's a little bit younger, soon to be 11 and 7. Um, but we both bring a unique parent perspective, especially to our administration. A big part of the Salesian mission. We say it at open house. We say it when we're speaking at high school fairs. I talk to the parents and I tell them that you will be a part of your son's education when you come to Salesian High School. You are now the moderator of the Parent Association, which is a direct collaboration with members of the administration. And, we always say education starts at home. This is a great organization that bridges the home and school. So, can you tell us a little bit about the organization we have here at Salesian High School?
Yeah, we recognized the need to really get one off the ground once everyone was able to return in person. Some schools have a great tradition of a mother's club, a father's club, and there are things that are exclusively their purview that, the administration doesn't really have to do anything but say, yes, that's okay. And this group runs it. We don't have that yet. What I would like to see eventually is that it truly is a partnership between parents and teachers in the administration and the Salesians, in that, 1 month maybe it's something informational, like we have a presentation from our ADAP counselor, and then the next month the parents are really running it, and it's about a committee for the mother-son dance or something like that. So we're moving in that direction. It's really exciting to see that there's a number of parents of freshmen who have extensive experience with parent organizations, much more so than I. And so I'm happy to transition in that direction instead of saying, here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what do you need from me? Or do you have it all? So, because parents are really, really invested in the success of their students, and we just need to find a way to make it more accessible to lots of people. So, for example, there are parents who have not yet participated, and we have to be sensitive to the fact that maybe their high school experience wasn't so positive and they're not excited to revisit that because they didn't get to go to Salesian. Or maybe they weren't educated in this country and they're uncomfortable with that fact. They don't want to say or do the wrong thing. So I think one way to engage more people is more social events. And a lot of our parents from Bronx Catholic schools, they know all about a social event at a school. So we're going to work towards both fundraising so that we get to know each other and have fun, but also fundraising so that we can, support the students as they need.
I love it. More fundraisers. That's fun with FUN. There's no D at the end. We're not trying to make money in this case.
Just trying to make friends.
That's it. And one of those events, I am the host of the Mother Son Dance. The 2024 Mother Son Dance saw about 160 moms and their sons. Sometimes we had grandmas there. I encourage you, come to Salesian High School. Come to the Mother Son Dance. It is the weekend of Mother's Day. It is always a blast, and it's another great opportunity for the moms to be part of the life of the school with their son. But that is just one of many opportunities. Now, we constantly talk about the home, the school, the parish, and the playground, and us as employees. We are always thinking, what can we do to strengthen that? How can I get involved more? What could I do? What can I moderate? You, this past school year, had a tremendous opportunity to take the kids across the ocean. Let's hear a little bit about the European trip you took our students on during spring break.
Yeah, so it has long been on my to-do list to visit Italy, and I didn't have the opportunity to. And so it was also on the to-do list of a lot of parents post-COVID. Will you return to international travel? When will there be a trip to Europe? Other schools do a trip to Europe. So I started to look into that. And my thought was it has to align with our mission and what we're trying to educate the young men towards. And so working with a company called World Strides, I was able to develop a really very Salesian-centric itinerary. And so we began in Milan in the north, and after flying over the Alps, which was amazing in and of itself, and then into the city of Turin, which is the area where Don Bosco began his work. Mrs. Coriale and I, she was the other chaperone. She's also the parent of graduates. She's our learning needs teacher. Um, we were joking that we had, out Salesians some of the Salesians. Like we went to the town where Saint Dominic Savio was born and died. And, to call it a town is generous. To call it a village is generous. Up a little dirt road that's, better suited for goats than boys from the Bronx and Lower Westchester. But what was impressive to me was how the boys got so much out of it, and we're excited to be there, and how many parents sacrificed for their kids to be there, and wanted updates, and so all these places that they had heard about at Salesian, to see some of the artwork that we see every day, to see its original. So, for example, in our chapel and in just about every classroom, there's an image of Mary Help of Christians. To be at the Basilica of Mary Help of Christians and see the original work was really, really powerful. To go to Easter Sunday Mass, where Don Bosco had offered Mass, was really very amazing. And then we did some other touristy things. We had a drive through the Italian countryside. Um, Stopped in Pisa. The boys all got to take that picture of them trying to hold up the tower. But again, I was struck everywhere we went with how our students understood if we were visiting a chapel, if we were visiting somewhere that was a former chapel or church, that a certain degree of reverence was needed. So they were excited and they wanted to play, but they also understood that, a time and a place for everything. Everywhere we went, we were the Ragazze Americano, the American boys were complimented, which was wonderful, and not what we often think of. We tend to focus on where there can be improvement instead of where they're excelling. So that was wonderful, a wonderful experience too. And then finally, we spent several days in Rome and saw just things that were just amazing. Interestingly, the Salesians of Don Bosco are charged with supervising the tours and visits of catacombs in Rome, which is not a very Salesian mission. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it is very fortuitous because our tour guide was a Salesian who had spoken with Father Tim and said, yes, of course, I'm waiting for your guys, and cleared his schedule, which made our students feel very important. And then finally, there's just the power of, after I'm what's described as a cradle Catholic, right? So I was baptized as an infant. I've always been a Catholic. I'm a lifelong Catholic educator. So I have said thousands of times in my life that I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. To be in the Vatican, to be in St. Peter's, which is what you imagine when you say that, is tremendously powerful. And to be in the Sistine Chapel, in silence, but surrounded by, hundreds of other people, is incredibly powerful. And then to get everybody back home safe and sound is also a wonderful blessing. So,
Yeah, it reminds me of a unique experience I got to have with our students way back, and I think it was like 2008 or 2009, where I was asked to join the students on their, at the time, the exchange program with the school we had in England. And like you just said earlier, uh, the best part of the trip was our kids were so good. I didn't have to worry about them. Like they handled themselves with such maturity and respect, and going to, and forget about another country, another continent, our other people saying, well, they were so complimentary of our boys. And I do have to say, I've chaperoned trips of Salesian students to St. Patrick's Cathedral, paintballing trips, museums, movie theaters. Our students always handle themselves so well. We are so proud of our students, present and past. That's going to segue me into my next question. You've been here for a few years. You've got to work with a lot of students. Do you have any proudest moments as a member of the Salesian High School administration?
So, as educators, we're in loco parentis, we're in place of the parent, and you can't ask a parent, do they have a favorite child, right? I don't think there is one favorite moment. It for sure was very special to get to be a part of my son's senior year every day. Not just because I'm so proud of him, but I am, but because he had such a great group of friends here. And it was so wonderful to see them every day and to see them get great news from colleges, to be excited about the next step. But then at the same time, to also be, yeah, they're 6 feet tall, but they're also boys still who need reassurance and encouragement. So that was very special. In any vocation, for me, it's not the big events that end up being so special, right? So, yep, Valentine's Day is great in marriage, but that's not the most special day. Mother's Day, it's nice, but it's not the most special. So our graduation is important. Our baccalaureate mass is very moving, but it's the little daily interactions that are so exciting and powerful. Um, the kid who said, "Oh, I hate English," but now wants to show you that he, is doing so well. He wants you to read his writing. That's exciting. When students will trust you with how they're feeling or their goals and plans, that's exciting. But yeah, if I had to choose one, it would be probably being a part of Henry's senior year because his friendship group was so great. And yeah, he did come with 10 other guys from St. Benedict's, and they were for sure part of it. But there were also guys that he never would have met had it not been for Salesian, of different school backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. We're coming up to the prom now. Those guys had so much fun at their prom, just fun, teaching each other all kinds of dances, and just so that's great to see in a world that will tell you that young men are dangerous. At worst, and lazy, to see them supporting each other academically, enjoying one another's company socially, setting goals for themselves, challenging one another, that was really wonderful.
That's great to hear. And in the meantime, let's give Henry a special shout out. Henry was a standout student here. Had I don't want to say flew through Salesian, took the toughest classes we had, graduated top of his class, and is now just finishing or has just finished his sophomore year studying engineering at Manhattan College. So big shout out to Henry Chambers and the rest of the St. Benedict's crew. So Mrs. Chambers, I'm going to ask you one last question before we go. How much have you loved working at Salesian High School?
So much. No, honestly, but it's important to remember that every vocation is hard, right? So whether you're called to the priesthood or religious life, or you're called to marriage, or whatever God is calling you to do is going to be hard. So to say that I love it and to say that I'm joyful to be here doesn't mean that every minute is a dream. Of course it's not. To love something is hard work. So sometimes you have to say to kids, like, I love you very much, but in this moment, I don't like you, or I don't like the choices that you've made, or I need space from you. So yeah, it's important. The longer I'm in education, the more I recognize that to give completely, you also have to take some breaks, set some boundaries. I appreciate that the Salesians recognize that as well. Yeah, so I love it very much. I have no plans to stop. I'm still fully aligned with our mission, so here we are.
Let's go. Let's go. Well, Mrs. Chambers, you have been a tremendous guest. It's everything I hoped for. I got a whole bunch of insight on I love the bit on the all boys versus co-ed versus all girls. I thought that was great. I hope everybody watching enjoyed it as well. This has been another awesome episode of Eagles on the Air. Like us on our social medias, follow us on YouTube, and until next time, Eagles on the Air.